Hello everyone, welcome back to the data science program. Under this video we are going to cover lambda functions, extremely important from data science point of view, and you guys will understand the importance of lambda functions when we enter into the pandas. So extremely important from data analysis and data science point of view. So I'll take you guys to the collab notebook and we'll discuss about this lambda function and higher order functions. So I'll take you guys to the collab notebook. What are these lambda functions? Till now we have studied about the user defined functions. So this lambda function are almost similar to user defined functions only, but this lambda function does not have any name. So till now we have created user defined functions. We have given the name of the function, like we have created function by the name of square, even, odd, cube. We have created multiple functions with names, but this lambda function does not have any name. It's anonymous, so it does not have any name. And I will read the definition. So lambda functions are similar to user defined functions without a name. They are commonly referred to as anonymous functions. So you can go through this definition. So now I will show you guys the syntax of lambda functions and why these lambda functions are used. We will discuss all these things one by one. So and this lambda function is executed in a single line of code. So these are anonymous, does not have any name, and these are executed in a single line of code. So I will now tell you guys the syntax of this lambda. So we have to use this lambda keyword, then we have to provide arguments, args, and then we have to provide this colon, and then we have to provide the expression. So this is the syntax of lambda function. So we have to use this lambda keyword. So this lambda keywords helps in creating the lambda function. So if you want to create the lambda function, you have to use this keyword, otherwise you cannot use lambda function. So the lambda is the keyword which creates the lambda functions. Then we have arguments. You can have multiple arguments. If you are having a single argument, you're simply using the argument. Let's say we are having a as the argument here, so simply write lambda a colon and then expression. So but if you have more than one argument, you can have multiple arguments here. So if you are having more than one arguments, so what you can do is you have to separate these arguments with a comma, and then you have this colon. This colon is the cue for expression. Q means it's basically a signal for the expression to execute. So we have this lambda keyword, then we have arguments. You can have multiple arguments followed by separated by commas. Then if you are having multiple arguments, then we have this q colon, which is a q for expression, and then we have our expression. So now I will show you guys one example example of the syntax only. So since it's the syntax, what I will do is I will simply write it as a comment only, and then I will show you guys one example here of syntax only. So lambda in arguments, let's say we have c comma d. We have these two arguments here, and then we have colon and what expression we want to perform. So let's say we want to multiply these two, so or add to anything you can do. So let's say we want to multiply c into d. We want to multiply c into d. So that's the syntax if you want to add if you want to multiply c and d. So I will now execute this code. So I will use lambda. We have two arguments here, c and d, and then we have this colon, and then we have c into d as expression. So we have c into d, and then we have if you cannot execute this piece of code because we have to provide input also. So what I will do is I will store it inside a variable. I will create a variable by the name of a, and I will store it inside a, and now I will pass the argument. So I will provide what I will do is I will write a, and I will pass the value of c as 10 and d as 5. So 5, we should get output as 10 into 5, which is 50. We will get 50 as the output here. See, we are getting 50 as the output. So that's the syntax and the first example of lambda function. And as you can see, we are using a single line of code for creating this lambda function. Till now we have created multiple function, user defined function, and we have used multiple lines, but here we are executing this and does not have any name, and this lambda function is getting created in a single line of code. So now we will see one more example. So I will create one more variable b, and we are using lambda. Let's say we want to calculate the cube of a particular number of a number. So we have this lambda, and then we have argument. If you want to calculate the cube of a number, you need only one argument. So let's say the argument is t. We have this t and then followed by colon, and what expression we want to perform? We want to perform x into and x to the t to the power 3. We are calculating t to the power 3, and now I will simply write b, and I will pass the value as 3. So we want to calculate the cube of 3. So we should get 27 as the output here. We will get 27 as the output here. We are getting 27 as the output. Now we will see one more example. This time we are creating a variable c, and now this time we want to check whether a particular number is even or odd. So we want to check whether a particular number is even or odd. So I will create lambda, and the expression is going to be let's say we have y, and we will type even. You can use if and else inside a lambda function. So if y modulus 2 equals to 0, else, okay, else we will odd. So now I will provide c, and we want to check whether 17 is even or odd. So we should get odd as the output. We will get odd as the output here. It's taking a bit of time, but we will get the output. See, we are getting you can check any other number. If you want to check, let's say we want to check whether 8 is even or odd, so we will get even as the output. We will get even as the output here. See, we are getting even as the output. Now we will see one more example. This time I am creating a variable d, and this time we want to check inside a particular string whether a particular character is present or not. So now what we will do is we will check whether v is present inside string Virat Kohli or not. So obviously v is present inside Virat Kohli, so we should get true as the output here. So what I will do is I will write lambda, and lambda, and then we have the string s, and then we want to check whether v is v in s, which means whether v is present inside this s string or not. And now I will simply provide the string Virat Kohli, and we should get true as the output because v is present in Virat Kohli. Instead of this v, if we would have used z, then we would have got false as the output. So here we have got true as the output because this v is present in Virat Kohli, so we are getting true as the output. Now we will see difference between lambda and normal functions. So normal functions we have created a user defined function, we have created functions, and now we are studying about lambda functions. So now we will discuss the differences. So first difference is lambda does not have any name. Till now we have created functions, we have given the name to the particular functions. Let's say we have created the function for calculating cube of a particular number. So we have created def cube, and we have passed the parameter. But here, when we are using the lambda function, we are not giving any name. It's anonymous, it does not have any name. That's the first difference. The second difference is this lambda functions get executed in a single line of code. So for previously we have used function, and for creating function we have used multiple lines, but for lambda function we don't require multiple lines, we need only one line, and this we can create this lambda function in single line of code. And the third difference is lambda function does not return any value. Always remember this thing. We have created function returns value, but lambda function never returns a value. What it does is it basically returns the complete function only. It returns function only. That's the third difference. And the fourth difference is you cannot reuse lambda functions. The main advantage of using function is you can reuse functions, but if you're using lambda function you cannot reuse it. So these are the four differences. I will summarize everything again. So the first difference is lambda functions are anonymous, so they don't have a name. The second difference is lambda functions are executed in single line of code. The third difference is lambda function the third difference is lambda function does not return any value, it returns the complete function only. And the fourth difference is lambda functions cannot be reused. So these are the four differences. So now we will see why lambda functions. So why we are using lambda function. We have studied about functions, we have created user defined functions. So why to use lambda function, and where we can use this lambda functions. I've written it. Lambda functions are used with HOF, which is the higher order function. Always remember one thing, why we are using where we are using this lambda function. These lambda functions are mainly used with the higher order functions. And what are these higher order functions? So higher order function is a function which returns another function. So first thing is we are using these lambda functions with higher order function. And the second is what are these higher order functions? So higher order functions are those functions which returns another function, or they receive another function as an input. So what are higher order functions? Higher order functions are those functions which returns another function, or they receive another function as an input. So I've written it. Higher order function is a function which returns another function or receives another function as an input. So lambda functions are used with higher order functions. So now we will see examples of higher order functions. So I will show you guys two examples. The first example is going to be higher order function without lambda function. The second example is going to be higher order function with lambda function. So I will create one function, def. I'm creating a function, and for creating, let's say, cube, and here we are passing, let's say I'm passing v. We are having this v, and then it will return, because we want to calculate the cube. What it will return? It will return v to the power 3. And then we have then we have one more function, def, and here we are creating one more function. And what this function will do here is it will modify, and it will receive a function and a list. It will receive a function and a list. Okay, it will receive a function and a list, and then it will have an empty list. Let's say we have output equals to, sorry, the spelling of output is wrong. So output equals to, then we have an empty list, let's say, and then we are running a loop for I in, I will explain this code, for I in L. Until now I have not created the list, but what I will do is I will create a list here. So for I in L, what I will do is I will simply first I will write, and then I will, okay, first I will create a list. I will create a list here only. So let's say we have this list. Okay, then we have a list here. Inside this list we have these numbers, let's say 3, 4, 5 and 6. We have these numbers. So we have a list. First we have created a function for calculating the cube. Then we have one more function, modify, which will receive a function as an input, and it will have a list. So then we have created an empty list, and we are running a loop in L. This L we have created for I in L. What we will do here is we will simply append this list to this. We will append output dot append. We will output dot append f of I. So it will basically iterate on this list and it will append all these values to this output, and we will simply print output. We will print output. What we will do is simply put print output. I will explain everything once I will write the code, and then we are calling this modify function. We are calling this modify function, and now what we are doing here is we are simply cube and then we are list. See what we are doing here. We have studied the definition of higher order function. So what higher order function does is it basically returns another function, or it receives another function as an input here. So see, this modify, you just forget about this function now. Just forget about this function. Just look at this function. We have a modify function and we have f and L. When we are calling this modify function, in modify, what it's receiving another function which is a cube. We have written the function cube here, and we have written the logic for this function here. And here when we are calling the modify function, here we are receiving another function as an input, which is the function cube here. And we have studied about the higher order function, that it receives another function as an input. So that's what we are doing here. So by going by that logic, basically this modify function is a higher HOF, a higher order function. It's a higher order function, and if I run the cell, we will get the cube of all these numbers as the output here. See, if I run the cell, we will get the output inside a list. See, we have got the output. We have got the cube of 3, which is 27, cube of 4, which is 64. You can calculate and you can recheck. The cube of 5 is 125 and the cube of 6 is 126. But here we have used the higher order function, but we have not used the lambda function. So the main use of lambda function is lambda functions are used with higher order function. So there is a problem with this code, I will tell you guys. Let's say if you want to calculate the power v to the power 4 or v to the power 2, let's say, then you have to create one more function here. Let's say we wanted to create a function for calculating the square, then we have to create one more function, def square, and we will have one input, and then we will calculate v to the power 2. Let's say we wanted to calculate the power v to the power 8, then we have to create one more function, def to the power 8, and then v to the power, we will return v to the power 8. So depending on the requirement, you have to create multiple functions. But whenever we are using the lambda function, you can do that in a single line of code. How? I will show you guys. What I will do is I will simply copy this. I will copy this, okay, and I will paste it. Okay, I will paste this. I will paste it over here. So see, if we are using the lambda function, we don't have to create these functions all the time. So what we can do, we can simply remove this. I'm removing this. So now we have a list, and then we have only one function here. We have this modify function which receives another function, and now what we can do here is, when we are calling, because we don't have another function here, we are not receiving that function as an input. So instead what we can simply write lambda function here, lambda, and because we wanted to calculate the cube, what I will do is I will simply write v, and I will calculate v to the power 3. I have calculated v to the power 3, and see, because we are using the lambda function, we don't have to write that, we don't have to write this function. Instead we have written this function in a single line. If we execute, we will get the same output here. Just wait for a few seconds and we will get the output. See, we are getting this, and the biggest advantage is, if suppose we wanted to calculate v to the power 4, then we don't have to write the function again. Simply we have to use to the power 4, and if we execute, we will get 3 to the power 4, 4 to the power 4, 5 to the power 4, and 6 to the power 4. see 3 to the power 4, 4 to the power. If you want to calculate v to the power sorry let's say if you want to calculate v to the power 2, it's taking a bit of time, but we will get the output. See, if I execute, we will get v to the power 2. So we don't have to write the function again and again. That's the biggest advantage of lambda function with high order function. So always remember this thing, why we are using a lambda function. We are using lambda function with high order functions, and it gives us this flexibility to write the code in a single line, and the code readability is better. So that's the advantage of lambda functions. So now we will study about 3 high order functions: map, filter, and reduce. So these are the 3 high order functions we will study. So what map does is it basically applies a logic to a list. It requires 2 things. Always remember this thing, map requires 2 things. It requires the lambda function and a list. So basically we should have a list, and we can apply any logic on that particular list. So what I will do is I will create a list here. I will create 7, 8 and 9. Sorry, 7, 8 and 9. I'm storing these 3. And what map does is it map requires only 2 things. First is the lambda function. Let's say we want to calculate the cube of all these numbers. Let's say we wanted to calculate the square of these numbers. Just for readability, I will calculate only square, because reading cube is a bit difficult compared to reading squares. So I will write lambda. It requires only 2 things. First is the lambda function. So we will write a lambda function for calculating the square here. So let's say we have this let's say we have y, and I will write the expression y to the power 2. We have written the lambda function, and it requires the list. We have created the list, so I will pass the list here. And now if I execute, we won't get the proper output here. See, we are not getting the proper output. What we have to do here is we have to basically we have to convert it into a list here. So I will write a list, and then list, and then if I run the cell, map requires only 2 things, lambda y to the power. If I run the cell, now I am running the cell. It's why it's taking time. Just wait for a few seconds. Maybe because of the internet issue, I guess. So always remember this thing, unexpected indent. Okay, let me check. What I will do here is I will simply pass the list here. I will pass the list here only, lambda. Let's say we are checking 7, 8 and 9. Map of, now if I run the cell, still we are getting the out. I think because of this unexpected indent, we have used map, and we have given this unexpected indent, list map lambda y. Okay, let me recheck with this other example. Let's say we want to check list of, I will use different variables now, map of lambda, and then lambda, and we are checking let's say j to the power 2. I'm checking this, and then I'm passing a list here, 7, 8, 9. And now if I run the cell, see why here we got the output. Why we were not getting the output? Because we were using the same variables. That's why this collab got confused. Here I have used a different variable j. You can use the same variable, but what we have to do is it's always better to use different variables, because this collab, Google Colab, it misbehaves all the time. If you're using the other like if you're using the Jupyter notebook, you will get the output, but here we got the error because of that, because we were using the same variable. So we got the output. So map requires two things. First is the lambda expression, and then it requires a list, and then you have to convert it into a list. So basically it map requires two things, and we can apply any logic. Here we have applied the logic that we wanted to calculate the square of the number inside the list. Now we have one more higher order function, which is filter. So what filter does is it basically filters depending on the condition given. So we will do the same thing. List of, you have to convert it into a list. Then we have filter and filter, and then we have lambda function, lambda, and then I will use some different expression. Let's say we are using g, and now we will check with we will have only those numbers which are greater than 5, let's say. So g greater than 5, we are giving this expression, and we have the lambda expression. We wanted to get only those numbers inside a list which are greater than 5, and now we have a list here. Let's say we have this list 7, 4, 8, 2. So we have two numbers greater than 5 here, 7 and 8. We should get 7 and 8 as the output here. So if I execute, we will get 7 and 8 as the output. We are getting 7 and 8 as the output here. And now we have one more reduce, high order function, reduce. So reduce is not a default function. So what we can do is, it's basically available inside a module. So you have to import a module called functools. So we have to import functools. See, we have to import functools because this reduce function is not a default function. It's present inside a module called functools. So functools, and how we can use this, we have to use functools. You have to use the syntax functools dot reduce, functools dot reduce, and then inside this reduce, what does it does is it basically reduces. Suppose we have two inputs here. Let's say we have two inputs. I'm using lambda. Let's say we have two inputs here. Let's say we have L and M, and we will get L if L is, we suppose we wanted to calculate the minimum between all the numbers. So I will explain everything. L and M, if L greater than, let's say we are calculating the minimum only, L is less than M, or otherwise else M, and then we will pass one list here. So it will pass one list here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I execute this code, we will get 4 as the output. Why? Basically what we are doing here is we are reducing. See what syntax I have given. We have two arguments here, L and M. So it will print L if L is less than M. So for the first time, L is 4, M is 5. So between these two, which is the minimum one? So L is the minimum one. So 4 is taken. Now this 5 is gone. Now we will check between 4 and 6. L is 4 and M is 6. So between 4 and 6, which is less? So 4 is less. So this second 6 will be destroyed. Similarly, this 4 will be checked with this 7. So 4 is minimum. Then this 4 will be checked with this. What we can do is if I replace this by 1, if I replace this 7 by 1, we will get 1 as the output here. See, if I replace this, we are getting 1. So what we have done here is this 4 and 5 will be checked. 4 is minimum, so L is printed, and then we will check 4 and 6. 4 is minimum, so 4 is taken. Then we will check 4 and 1. 1 is minimum, so 1 is taken. So here L, between L and M, M is minimum, so M is taken because we've gone to the else condition. So 1. Now we will check between 1 and 8. 1 is minimum, so 1 is taken. Similarly, what we can do is we can we reuse this copy, and I will add one more cell here. I will add one more cell, and I will paste this, and this time we will check for maximum. We will check for maximum. So we will check L and M. If we will print L if L is greater than M. So 4 and 5 we will check L is not greater than M, so we will go to else. M is taken, so 5 is taken. Between these two, 6 is taken because 6 is maximum. Between these two, 6 is taken because 6 is maximum. Between these two, 6 and 8, 8 is taken because 8 is maximum. So if I execute, we will get 8 as the output. So that's about these three high order functions: map, filter, and reduce. And lambda functions, super important for data science point of view. When we will enter into pandas, you guys will understand the importance of lambda functions. We guys will be using lambda a lot, so lambda is really important. So what you can do is you can go through this video, and you can, if you don't understand it in a single shot, so you can rewatch this video again. And it's not a difficult topic, it's an easy topic only. So and that's about this video. Thank you for watching, guys. Thank you.